Well, what's up, guys, and happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right? Yeah. Today we'll be doing some very overlooked suspension steering components, and that is the front inner tie rods. These are supposed to be good forever. These are about 22 years old in the car, so I'm just going to change them. They're not that expensive. And I mean, even if you have 1/100th of an inch slop in there, it's going to telegraph back to your steering wheel to feel even more loose, if that makes sense. So I got these off of Rock Auto, not very expensive. I think both of these total are like 40 bucks, not that much. And then after this, every single steering and suspension component has been replaced within the last year on the C5Z behind me. So let's do a little intro and I'll show you what you get. These are pretty quick and dirty, very simple job to do. But I'll walk you through it. I don't think I've seen an inner tie rod front on the C5 ever on YouTube. So hopefully this helps someone else out there. Don't let this job scare you. You need just a couple of tools to do it. And I'll show you how to do it where you don't need to do an alignment. It takes a little bit of patience and setting up, but it's not that hard. Out of the box, you get your inner tie rod. This connects to your steering rack, and this connects to your outer tie rod, which connects to your knuckle. Nothing too exciting there. You get some hardware. You get the outer clamp and the inner clamp for the boots. The outer is pretty self-explanatory. The inner is kind of goofy. It uses one of these pinch type clamps. You do need a special tool for this. I just happen to have some tile snips, and this is almost the exact same tool, but not being the tool. And we get there, I'll show you to do it. It just slips over top like that. These little grooves. You just clamp that down, and it tightens it up. Pretty simple, but I'll show you when we get there. I've done so many steering and suspension improvements on this car. Just look at my library. This is the very last thing. So if there's any slop remaining, it would be in the inner tie rods. But I think we got 99.6% of it taken care of. This will take care of the last 0.4%. So I'll take you over to the car and show you how I set it up to do this to where you don't need an alignment. It'll get you about 99.9% accurate to where it was when it came off. So let's go to the car and I'll run you through that. All right, so first things first, get the car up off the ground. I do both tires at the same time. It doesn't matter, but I recommend you have both up. To do this, you're gonna need 3 points of reference, and I'll show you what I mean by that. You're gonna need some tape and a pencil or pen. So as you can see right here, I have my steering wheel lined up perfectly right there with a little mark right there on my dash. So there's no way to mess up from right this angle exactly where the steering wheel should be relative to the wheels. And then down here at the exact 9 o'clock position, I make a little mark right there. And make sure you put a nut on here so there's no wiggle room in your inner rotor. And then a third reference point right over here on the wall. And then measure this to there. And this is exactly 32 inches. So I know the car being static, it won't move. Once I get that off, the new one on pretty close. And once I adjust the jam nut right there to exactly 32 inches, I am dead nuts good to go with the alignment. So also when doing this, just be careful you don't knock the tape off of here. Get it on there pretty damn good. So we're going to take off this nut right here for your outer tie rod, knock this guy out, and then we'll go ahead and just take this guy off. Might as well. We can count the turns too, it'll help. And then we'll go ahead and take the boot off. When I'm ready for the boot, I'll show you that job in 1 second. All right, once you get the outer tie rod banged out the knuckle, go and put the nut back on. And also turn your steering wheel all the way to the left to hit the lock. So that way your tie rod, once we get the boot off, the tie rod nut should be about right here. Otherwise you'll be fighting yourself and be way in there. So make sure you move the steering wheel all the way to the left to get that guy off. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the boot off and I'll show you what I mean. All right, inner boot clip's a little tricky, not too hard. I just use a little pick right here. Put it in there and just kind of turn it left and right, and it came undone. Easy day. So let's go ahead and get the outer here, and then we can just pull the boot right off. And if you're curious, it's exactly 20 turns to take the outer tie rod. For what I see, 1920 is about the norm for this guy. But again, we'll be using the turnbuckle in here with our reference points at the end. And of course, annotate all of your numbers somewhere. Mine's on my wall behind me. All right, let's get the boot off. Also, once you get the boot off, it comes up pretty easily. Go inspect the inside of your rack, make sure nothing's leaking out of there. I got a little bit of grease. Looks like it's from the ball joint here, but it looks pretty good. Doesn't look too bad of shape. It's a little loose, but not bad. So it'll give me peace of mind knowing that everything's now swapped out. So one last thing you got to do, well, two things really. A lot of these inner tie rods will have these little plastic retaining clip things. Is that a real best way to get them off? I just kind of take like a chisel, like a plastic chisel or piece of wood, put on the lip there and just knock it off that way. It just keeps it in place. So once we knock that off, then we can remove this with a adjustable wrench. So I'll show you my setup, how I get this little ring off here in a second. Cool, yeah, it came right off. I just put this up against it, gave it a little tap with my hammer, came right out. And keep it back there when we take it off, because you got to slip it back over the new one once we do that. So I'm gonna go and get this off, and they go on lefty loosey, righty tighty, just like another bolt, nothing special about it. So let's go ahead and get this guy off. Hopefully it's drama free. So far everything's going pretty smooth, which makes me kind of nervous. So I'll let you know if I run into any drama getting this little guy off. All right, got her on out. I used an adjustable wrench for a couple minutes. It was kind of awkward. I happen to have a pipe wrench, and it worked marvelously. Came right off. It makes me nervous when things go so smooth. So far, so good. So yeah, I believe this is probably the original OE1 from 2001. It's seen better days, greased a shot. So I feel pretty good about this project. Let me go ahead and get this in and torque down tight. The torque spec is very tight. Let me look it up, and I'll put it in the description below, exactly what the torque spec is. And then I'll show you how to get the boot back on. All right, the little plastic retaining clip deal. I cleaned it up really good, put a rag behind it, and just pulled it forward really tight. Put on a little bit of effort, but not too bad. So, last thing we gotta do is get that boot on and wrap everything up, and then we're done. All right, we're all done. Clamps on. Now, I cheated. My clamp's right here. Now, once I got it on there and the boot set, there was no way while on the car with the steering rack I could fit the this tool in there. So I cheated, and I just happen to have some exhaust wrap clamps. These things are amazing. You just kind of wrap it around, you fit it through, and then I just spun it with your needle pliers, tighten it up. It's not going nowhere. So yeah, if you're doing this on the car like me, you're gonna have a hard time getting that rear boot clamp on. So I recommend, if you can, go grab some of these. They're almost like metal zip ties, if you like. I mean, honestly, you probably could just use a zip tie. There's nothing terribly hot right here. I mean, you're about a foot from the bottom of the block. Maybe your power steering gets that hot. I don't know. But in any case, it's on. I'm gonna get the outer tie rod on, get everything lined back up, and then we'll go for a little drive, make sure my steering rack or wheels don't fall off, and make sure we're all happy here. All right, very interesting. So here on my passenger side, everything is going smoothly until I got the boot off, and this thing is leaking power steering fluid on the inside. So I am glad I did this. So I found an issue with my power steering. I will be doing seals and or a new steering rack in the near future, so that'll be a fun video. That's unfortunate, but I'm glad I found it, and it didn't get terribly worse until the point where something catastrophic happened. So I think we'll be okay for now. I'm gonna go ahead and get this buttoned up and check the fluid, of course. That's unfortunate, but you know what? It is what it is. So more content, I guess, for the future. So, all right, let me get this dropped up. All right, before I put this thing back on the ground and go for a drive, I did add some power steering fluid, or I guess in this case, there's some ATF. Same thing. For this car anyway. So we'll see. I'll probably do a proper flush of the power steering fluid now the next week or two. Maybe use a higher viscosity or something temporarily until I get a rack. I really do not look forward to doing a rack. You do got to drop the cradle in the front. It's not a terrible job. It's just kind of a pain in the ass, but we'll see. I'll monitor it and whatever. All right, let me go for a ride and let you know how it feels. All right, and real quick, just to close this video out, it's actually the next day. Took the bed on a test drive, it drove fine. However, while doing the passenger side, I had to get a little aggressive with the knuckle on the top of the ball joints. Hammered the hell out of it, and doing that, I think I moved the car just enough to where the steering wheel is off by about 2 degrees. So my method does work as far as keeping it aligned, but I recommend using a little ball joint tool. That way you're not jarring the car, if you will. So it was probably 1/8 of an inch I might have moved it, and just enough to get the steering wheel a little out of whack, but it's okay. I can fix it. It looks like I'm going to need a new steering rack soon. So I don't know when I'll get to that. I'll get to it when I get to it. I might do the rear inner tie rods as the very last ones too, but they seem to be in good shape. And then what else is coming down the pipeline for the C5? I'm gonna do some black badging and maybe some of those hood vent inserts. I don't know. I'm still on the fence about those. And then a rear valance, front lip, and I might do the softer Swift springs, the 6K spring rate up front. So right now they're 7K. They're a little harsh with the bushings, not terrible, but over on highways where the road kind of transitions from like a bridge or something, it's kind of harsh. So I might swap those out. They're pretty cheap. So if I do that, I'll let you know, I'll report back how that feels. So that's all I got for today, guys. Hope you guys found this informative. If you're trying to do your front inner tie rods, not a hard job at all. Hour of your time, quick and dirty. All right, guys, I'll catch you next time, and mark out.